Hey everybody, Eric Meyer. Last night, Andrew Rains had a webinar for Simple Speed Trace, and I have volunteered to look at a couple of people's data that send it in, and that's what we're going to do right now. It was Steve Eisler last night. We did a quick video, and we're going to do one right now using Track Attack. You can see that down here, Track Attack, and we're just going to kind of walk through what's going on right here. So what we're going to do is way up here, we're going to walk through this. I really like this, and that is this file right here, this Cresson. And you can note that that is a CSV file, right? So what happened is exported it as a CSV file, which is one of the options on Apex Pro when you share it. And I'm going to open it right here. It defaults right here, and let's see, we're gonna have to put in driver info, which is Steve Dazet, D-A-Z-E-T, and I'm gonna put that right in here, Steve D-A-Z-E-T. And if I remember right, he had a super unlimited car, because I looked on his Facebook page, and that's what I think's going on. So that's what I think's going on. So here we go. We're going to do this as if you were a first timer to data, or you're trying to learn. You're an Apex Pro user. You don't have any device, and you want to learn. And I like using Track Attack up here. I like using this a lot because it's really easy to see on a big screen. If I'm at the track, I'm using the Apex Pro app with the iPad. So here's what we're doing here. We're going to go and we're going to set this up right here so that it looks something like this. Most of you know that the bold lap right here is a 121. And what I'm seeing here is just a couple laps. Maybe it's qualifying. We don't know, as in race qualifying, because there's not many laps. It's certainly not a big long race because it would have a whole bunch of laps. And really, we don't know much about it. So kind of going in here blind, you'll know a lot more about your data, especially if you take notes and say, this was the afternoon session, it was raining, and I was on old tires. That stuff's important. That's really important, especially for people who are looking at your data. So here we go. I'm going to lay this out and how I have my Track Attack laid out, and I really like this. It's in three sections. It's the squiggly lines part right here. Oop, let me get going here, sorry. It's the squiggly lines part right here. That's what these things are called, squiggly lines. We're going to interpret them later. It's up here for the values. I really like this right here, specifically for this one and really for this one, distance. Right here, and we're going to use that. I'll make some examples of that. And this effort is right here, so that's how you turn that on. Okay, and I also like this one over here, as big as I can get it. I put it underneath this. This is just me. You can configure this however you want. And that one is right here. Okay, so there's the configuration. As always, it's the most important thing to have the big three. And notice they're all GPS generated. And you should know this by now. If you've done and watched several of these videos, you should be able to know this. And if you don't, I don't know what you're doing when you're watching, because I repeat the same things over and over and over again. This is the big one. This is the money channel. This is the one we did last night with Andrew Rains. So we're going to go here under channels, and we're just going to show the GPS speed right here. Just the GPS speed. Nice and huge and big and giant, just like this. So pretend this is your information, right? At a track that you're familiar with, because it's yours. I'm going to size that a little bit so I have it in here, and I'm just going to walk you through my thought process for what a beginner will want to understand. So before we figure out how to go faster and look at your data, you first got to understand what the heck you're looking for. And another way to say that is before you can go bicycle motocross racing, you need to figure out how the pedals work, and that when you turn the handlebars, it steers, right? So that's what we're doing right now. We're uh, we're playing around a little bit. So we know that this y-axis, which is the vertical axis in this case, has speed in this channel as noted in miles per hour. All right, should be a refresher to most of you. And this is the x-axis. In this case, it's feet, which is the pretty much the standard standard not unit of measure. The standard measurement is in distance. You can make it time, which I believe is this one right here. We'll click on that. Yep. See what just changed down here? But for 99.9% of you, make sure this is on distance. It will make a lot more sense. Okay. So here we go. We're displaying the whole app. Again, if this is new to you, you might want to watch this a few times. And if you're used to this, this is just reinforcing. So we're up here going. This is the top speeds where we're going to brakes, right? This is a long straight right here, and where we go to brakes, right? Because the mile per hour is going slower. All right, I'm not going to spend a super lot of time on this. This is where we're going to brakes, right? Here's where we're coming off the gas and we're accelerating, right? So I want to do a couple things. I'm going to look over here and I'm going to switch this part of the track map right here, and it's basically I'm going to get familiar with what's going on. I'm also going to turn this because it looks like I can kind of fit more in here and make it a little bigger. Something like this, okay? Something about like that. So I'm just going to familiarize myself with the start finish line, which is noted right here, right? And this start finish line right here, as the track goes, it makes sense. Oh, got that backwards. Apologies, sir. As the track goes this way, right? Which means it goes this way, right? And if you're looking at new data, it's okay to do this. You're learning this stuff. Make it easy on yourself. Make it simple. Some people go, hey, that's a no-brainer. Some people have a little more challenge. That's okay, man. That's okay. We're here to learn. So we know that this is standard track map kind of stuff, that this right here is this right here. It's the 0 foot mark, the starting mark, right? And that right here, just a little bit more, is right here. And that right here, right here on the map is right here. Okay. We also know that this is the end of some long straight before braking. And we know that this is coming onto the front straight and crossing the start finish line right here, right? We know that just by kind of looking at it. We also know that there are a couple of slow corners right here in the what looks like a 40-mile-an-hour range, and another one right here. And we also know that this is about halfway through the track. And if I were to guess and kind of drive around here, I would say that somewhere in here might be halfway through the track, one of those two corners. So I'm kind of looking right in here, and let's follow it around. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to use our cursor, our little Mickey Mouse hand up here, and we're going to go, okay, right down here is the minimum speed. It's usually a corner and an apex right here, right? Do you see that down here? That's right here. So I'm going to put a number 1 right there. Number 1, I'm going to put right over here. Let me erase this again and try this. Right here, I'm going to put number 1. I'm going to put number 1 right here. Okay? And I'm going to go a little bit farther. We're up here, and then we're going to brake. And right here, right here, I'm going to put number 2 right over here on the track map. Right in there. All I'm doing is kind of learning what this stuff is, right? And I go right here, and you know what? As I look over at the track map in the lower right, I see that right here is a corner. Look over the track map. See that? There's an apex that you're shooting for. I'll call that number 3, right? Come back over here somewhere and put 3, 2, right? And I'll go up here, right? Here's another one. I find this makes it a little easy for everybody. And somewhere in here is 4, right? And so forth and so on, right? For all the way around the track. Let's put that right there. It just helps making the 4 right there. Sorry, it's so messy. It just helps bridging the gap between looking at this stuff over here and making a relationship over here. So try that. It's easy to do. You can print this stuff out on paper. You can doodle. You can however you want to do it. There's several different ways, and almost every software has the ability to has a program inside of it that allows you to do one of these squiggles. In this case, I use a little Wacom tablet. So I digress. Okay, so we kind of made the relationship, and we're going to look at the tops of these top speeds right here. This is usually the first thing we do, and we're looking for the shape of the decisiveness of going to brakes. And in this case, these look really nice. What this means here is we're on the throttle going up. Looks like there's a shift right here. On the throttle going up, and we're decisive. We're going to brakes, and we're going to brakes firmly all the way down here. And here's where we approach apex, right? And here's where we start feeding on the throttle. So what I like to do for people is, if you can just imagine, remember we did that over here earlier with our numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, that each of those is at, near, or about an apex, if driven correctly and there's no traffic to slow you down, that this portion right here, right, is the end of the braking and the turn in, and this is the apex, and as we accelerate out. Now, as a general rule, it's a little bit smaller than that, and we're gonna diagnose that and really look. So here we are over here in this corner. And again, I'm trying to relate. I'm trying to relate these squiggly lines over here with what's going on the track, right? You have video that you can add in here, like in another square up here, video. It helps even more. But for now, we've got just data, which a lot of people have. And this is good quality Apex Pro data. Let's double check that. Yeah, there it is right there. See that says Apex score right there? That means it came from Apex Pro. See if I can do that again. Well, right there is Apex score, which is now down in here. We're going to take that off. Okay, so we're making the connections. We're connecting some stuff, and what I want to do now is I want to show you this braking part right here. Looks like looks like a shift. That's what those usually are. This braking part is it comes right down into here, and this is an apex in here somewhere, and then we're going to accelerate and get on the gas. So we're going to relate this to over here, because once you understand one of these, it gets it's a little easier. So I'm going to do that, because a lot of times people are like, oh yeah, I know where that's at. That's making sense. I'm going to zoom in on it nice and big, right? Super nice and big. And we know that the track goes this way, right? It's going this way. And we know that the apex is someplace down in here. And if the apex is someplace down in here, the apex is someplace down in here, right? So look at that. I'm going to put that cursor right there, the track map cursor. Do you see that? And I'm going to put a line right there for the apex. And I'm going to go over here on the squiggly lines. I'm going to do the same thing right there. Okay? And then what we're going to do is we're going to back up right here and figure out where this driver's turning in. And it looks like Steve's turning in. Look on the track map in the lower right. It looks like it's about right there. Do you see that? This is about right here. See how this is starting to put a radius on that? And then we're also going to go and look at the track out, which may be somewhere in here, maybe about like this, right? Somewhere like this. So here's our turning process, right? Is this making sense, guys? We're turning in as we're braking. Here's our apex. We're feeding in the gas. Why are we feeding in the gas? Because the speed trace is going up. We're opening up the wheel and changing that, and here we go. And just a little bit farther, we're going to go to brake. Well, let's look at that. Let's go down here and figure out where he's going to brake. So we see up here where Steve is going to brake. And it looks about also right there. It happens to be on that same red mark that I moved. If I moved it over here, it would work too, right? Same thing right about here's where we're going to brake. Guys, it's really helpful to understand this stuff, right? And here's the next apex right in here, which is going to be this one down in here, right? There we go. And we can see right here that based on that geometric apex, I'm going to show you this again. I'm going to zoom out on this next corner and zoom in a little bit right here. Put the cursor right there in the middle of the corner. We can see right here that Steve's minimum speed was back here, right? Because I'm looking right here, the lowest part of that graph, and when I put my cursor on there, anything from there he's accelerating. So right there is the point that he starts to accelerate just by looking at the speed graph only. Speed graph only, right? And we know that because he's going from right here, right? Right? And then he brakes. Is this making sense? Is this too making sense? Okay. All right. We're going to get into a little bit more because what I see right here is that the top of his brake traces are pretty. There's something that's unique right there. You see that. Actually, we're going to just spend some time and look at the tops of all of these. It's usually one of the first things we do. So I'm looking right here, and I kind of see this shape. This isn't critical, guys. This is just what you need to see. I see this kind of shape, and I'm exaggerating right there. But this is where I like a big, huge computer because it's easy to see. A guy like Andrew Rains can look at his iPhone and he can see this stuff. It's a little harder for new folks. Okay, I actually see some of the same thing right here as well. Just a little. And if he's running a late model Super Unlimited, it's probably because he doesn't have ABS and it's a big old car and he's pushing on the brake pedal real hard. See a little bit of this one right here. Again, all we're doing is kind of dissecting, right? It kind of looks like this. See that right there? It kind of goes up, then has a little angle this way. Try that again. Goes up, has a little angle this way, and it goes down. Well, this is pretty normal, but you know, you're looking for tenths at this point. This is pretty. This is the same one, right? Has a little bit of this, and then it comes down. All this looks absolutely beautiful. And again, those are typically shift points right there. Okay, so if this is old old hat to you, then we're going to add the next channel, the second of the big three, which is longitudinal. Longitudinal, as you know, and GPS longitudinal is what your feet are doing, right? And if you don't know this, I have like 500 videos that talk about the simple longitudinal channel. And basically, above this line is acceleration, and below this line is braking. And the way that you can relate that is right here. I'm going to zoom out. I'm going to go to that map. We're going to go to right here on the track map. Okay. We're going to go right here on the track map. And we're going this way. And we're going to go to brake somewhere. And we're going to turn in, and there's that apex, right? So watch over here on the squiggly lines. And where we go to brakes, right there, where we go to brakes, right here, look over on the track map. You see that? It's about right here, if I remember right. Okay. What you see and how longitudinal works is this right here. You see this trace throwing down negative values below zero. Below is negative. Using your feet, and that's brakes. This is brakes right here. Okay. This is a crude understanding of this. That means this is brakes as well, and this is brakes as well, and this is brakes as well. What I can see here is a couple things. I can see the maximum value of this one. Looks to be the, right, I'm just going to put a couple of these down here. This is just less braking, right? Tiny little bit. Actually, this looks like more of a, because this is a speed, this is probably a lift, right? A lift, even though it shows some decel. And that would be a lift at 84 miles an hour. Okay. If it was pure braking, this thing would be going down, right? But it's not, it's going across. So I want you to be able to see that in your data and relate this to this, right? And if we're good, we'll look on the track. This makes sense. This is going into this corner right here. Just waiting to go to the juice, waiting to go to the throttle. Right there, look on the track map, right? As we zip right around. Getting ready, and then right here we're going to go to the juice. So what I'm doing here is, the next thing I'm doing is I'm looking at the magnitude of the braking. And in this case, we got 1.1 G's, and I would ask Steve, how's that feel? Think you can brake harder? Don't know much about his car. I'm going to guess he's on a radial. Maybe he's on a bias. I don't know. They need to know more about Super Unlimited. Maybe he's on an old Hoosier. Maybe he's on a new Hoosier. But as a general rule, once you know more about the car, you can understand how much the car can go to brake. Right here is negative 1.12 value that I see right here. And I would always ask, do you think you can get more out of the car? What we do see is some consistency in, I think, 1G, which is good. I'm going to look at right here because it looks like we brake and come off the brakes, and then something wonky happens right here. So let's dive into this again, right? And let's look at this more closely. So it appears that here's where we're going to throttle. And how I got there is not by this channel, but I went and saw this when this is starting to go up. And then I just made this parallel and look down here and go, oh yeah, look, this has crossed over the zero line and it's headed up. That's what that means. Well, let's look over here. It looks like we're going the same speed from right here to right here, right? pretty much the same speed. So from right there on the track to right there on the track, which was about, let's do that again, right there on the track, we're going the same speed. All right, we all agree to that? Yes, Eric. So what we're going to do now is we're going to add the lat channel on that same exact area, and we're going to see how much G's that we're pulling right there in or about apex. Remember, we're going to throttle right about there. And what I can see right here, it looked like it was 1.1 G's right in here. 1.2, 1.1. That's a nice lateral G, and it's also consistent with the values down here. If this had a negative 1.4 braking, but only a 1.1 lateral G, for example, I would say, yo, dude, you are getting a ton out of that tire, and that car can do it here. Chances are it can corner and do that as well. Now we can see here, this is a deeper value. Let's take a look at this value. Looky there. There's a little spike of 1.5 and getting every bit of what looks like about 1.3. If you kind of average this through here, kind of like I'm driving through the middle of this right here, kind of see what it is. That car's got 1.3 right there. There might be a little more opportunity. Don't know. I'll ask you, Steve, to get a little more grip in here. And part of the reason I say that, my friend, is this the nature of this tighter than 90-degree corner, where you're going to throttle on or about right here. I wonder if you can take it in there just a little bit deeper, because I see this right here, this double event, and really we just needed to get it to here. So could you, sir, keep on the gas a little bit longer, then brake at the same amount? Let me do that again. If we're going to throttle about here, and there's a fair amount of distance, right? When I say distance, distance from here to here, which looks like 4,100, about 200 feet, right? We say 200 feet, always think of braking martyrs. Could we go a little farther, maybe 50 feet, maybe 100 feet farther? Then parallel, using the same braking technique, right? So this is just a little more speed through there. That's a question. That's a question. I would recommend trying that. Maybe the car doesn't turn well in that corner. Maybe you went off there. Maybe there's a bump there or something, I don't know. But that's what I would look for a one simple quickie recommendation without getting into this super quickly. What else do we see over here? Here we see something here that looks like a lateral load in the turn, and then coming off and a lateral load again. We see a pretty good value, another 1.2, 1.2, right? We're seeing some pretty good lateral values, but let's try to figure out what this dude is. And if we look down here, I'm going to blow this up so we can see it a little bit. I'm going to slide this down here so we can see it. I'm going to slide this over here so we can see it, see where we're at on track. All right, so everybody look over the track map to see where, so we're in this big wide radius corner, right? And if we look right here, here's where we're coming onto the throttle. Again, all I'm trying to do is have you see this. And I say that because it's right here. It's going up. Looks like a shift right here. And it's going up. And this is also where we cross over and add throttle. See something interesting. I see a decrease in the rate of acceleration. And as I go up here, I look at this and I say, interesting. I also note that that was a shift. And that might be something that when we're right here, when we shift, we're going into a more of a, we might be just babying and feathering the throttle. That's probably what's going on. And what I see here is this little area of adding throttle right here. You can only do one or the other. Almost corresponds to this dip right here that is less than our 1.2 1.2 G's, right? So in other words, in order to try to make this straight all the way across, we can't have this. So for whatever reason, and let's take a look, we're coming in here and we're entering with a bunch of lateral load, and then we're going to trade and open the wheel. We're going to trade lateral load for throttle. Okay, until we get about here where it's a steady state throttle, as noted by this right here, as noted by 1.2 sustained lateral G, where the car's, let's put the car right there. There it is right there. Right in here, it looks kind of like a little straight, right? The driver is holding a steady speed, give or take, and he's under load, right? He's under load right here, and he's getting ready to do something here. What's he getting ready to do? This dips down just a little bit, and he's getting ready to go to throttle, which is right here. And if we put the cursor on there, we can see that he's on the juice right there, right? And at the same time, he's unwinding the wheel, which is what that means, right? Less lateral acceleration. You guys seeing this connection? As we go on and move, looks like another shift right here. You want to see something interesting? It's one of my favorite things to see. Looks like there's the shift right here, and there's a little dip in acceleration. It's probably, if he's got a super unlimited late model, it's probably a 4-speed gearbox, and there's some big, which is not a close ratio, so there's some bigger dips when you shift, you know, bigger bogs. Wah, ma, as opposed to, you know, hearing a tight gearbox on a sport bike, or F1 car. Is that making sense? What's the summary here? I have to go into it a little bit more to look at it, but the purpose of this is to basically help people make the relationship between these squiggly lines, and again, I got zillions of videos, what's going on here, and then kind of picture it in your own mind. This relationship-based teaching method or learning method is what I find people have the most success with, and that's this. It's always looking at this and relating it to this, and then adding this channel, and then realizing when things go down right here, that's the same thing as when this thing goes down, right? Same way when it goes up, right? And then also figuring out where the apexes are. So those would be the things that I would do to, just with these two channels right here and the track map, those would be the things that I would do to practice your own and really bag the idea of how fast can I go, and really just learn how to pedal and turn the bicycle with the training wheels before you do anything. Because that way we can go on to the next level, which is where to find time. But you need to know that and that is what? Well, there's probably some sustained corner right there, right? And there it is right there. Guys, you'll get good enough with this in the future that you'll be able to do this on your home track. You'll be able to just have this right here and just have this right here and drive around your track. And I would encourage you to learn enough about this to play this in your head to go, okay, yeah, this is where I go to brakes. And visualize, which is one of Ross Bentley's huge speed secrets to envision what the heck you're doing. That allows you to not only replay, but reprogram to brake a little bit later, to not brake as much, to go to throttle just a little bit later, but stay in it. This is really a big part of how you both identify what you're doing, which is why video is so important, and more importantly, reprogram what you're doing, because you got to envision it. You got to have a map that says, here's what I'm going to do next. Here's what I'm going to try. Otherwise, you don't know what you're doing, or you're going to repeat the same thing. Is that making sense? So there's an apex, there's a sustained, probably a corner at high speed corner, right? Check that, 85 miles an hour, right? A shift, a strong braking zone, right? A brake followed by an apex, followed by a juice, followed by a slower corner, right? This is, what is that, about 65 miles an hour. Then we come into the next slower corner, which is 55 miles an hour. And then another one right here at 45 miles an hour, right? Apex, 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 gas, shift, right? Right? Feather off, sustained, wait. This is the weight, right? That weight is right here. This looks like about a 500-foot length, or a do that in car lengths, right? There's a bunch of car lengths. This is making sense? Okay. I hope that that Steve, in doing this, you picked up something. Send me an email if you like. If you got any questions, we'll get back on Zoom, you and I together, and I will ask you to walk me around the track and do the same thing that I just did, because that's how people learn. You can digest this all you want, guys, and watch a ton of videos, which I'd highly recommend. But ultimately, when somebody says, drive me around the track and tell me what this is, Steve, tell me what's going on right here, tell me what gear this is this a 3/4 shift, right? Tell me about this. Tell me about this right here, right? Tell me this is up and down a little bit, right? What's this thing right here? There's another shift. There's another shift. That's when you start learning. And you can do this with your spouse. You can do this with your best buddy. You don't have to be precise and accurate. You just have to give it your best guess. That's what you got to do. You got to put it in your head. And I like to verbalize it. You can also write it out. I like to verbalize it and talk with someone. If you got another buddy that's wanting to learn this as well, two people together learn a hell of a lot faster than doing this on your own and holding it in your head. You really need tested on it. And you think of this. You're doing mathematics in elementary school, and the teacher asks you to come up on the board. That teacher is there to help you succeed. That teacher is to help. The teacher's really doing is understanding what your mental process, what you're going through, and to help you get on the right program. That's what I'm here to do. That's what Andrew Rains is here to do. Steve, thanks for letting me play with your data. Anybody, if you got any questions, put them in the comments section below, or send me an email at eric@instructorsummit.com. Be safe out there. I'll talk to you soon.